Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running and nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, I hope that you're doing well and you are ready for, the Computer America Show. So today on the show, we had a guest scheduled, but unfortunately that kind of fell apart, but it's okay. We have a full segment of computer and technology news that we could definitely do. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So everyone, hey, welcome to the program, computeramerica.com. Got to get that out there. It has all past shows, future shows, and hey, it will be updated momentarily after we do today's program. We'll be sure to go ahead and do that. So hey, be sure to check that out. Also check out wherever podcasts are heard. Computer America can be found there, and find us on social media at Computer America. We should be on all of them, and hey, definitely appreciate the follow. So, and hey, we appreciate you tuning in, and we're really happy to have you. Let's go ahead and jump into computer and technology news, brought to you by Computer America. So the first thing we're going to do, and this is for everyone out there who is a web developer, so be sure to pay attention if this is your line of work, because now we have a final date for when HTTPS is certifications. They're starting to crack down on those, and this is something that Google had changed about a lot of websites a little while ago, and of course everyone else had to kind of follow suit, because hey, if Google says it, then everyone has to kind of do it. HTTPS, that is the protocol at the beginning of any address, and the S stands for secure. HTTP is not a secure domain, so everything was switched over to HTTPS, and that S signifies that there is a certificate that is verifying to your browser that it's not just Ben says Computer America is Computer America, because anything can be Computer America with an HTTP, but with the secure option, there is a certificate that it can say, hey, I have this token from Computer America saying that they're Computer America. Does this token match your token on your server that Computer America does not own? Can you validate this? And you can do that validation through any number of ways. Some of them are free, some of them are paid for, and there's plus and minuses to free and paid. But really, it wasn't the highest hurdle to overcome. And most websites out there today now have an SSL TLS certificate, thereby being HTTPS. And we definitely recommend that you make sure all of your web addresses have that HTTPS there with it, there in the address. So now we have this article. This is from the Register, saying that in February, Apple will crack down on long-life HTTPS certificates, and they say it's happening. Chrome and Firefox are ready to join in as well. And that's the big thing. Chrome, Firefox, Apple, of course, through Safari. That's three of the main browsers, and I'm sure that the other ones, including Opera and Edge, although, of course, Edge being a derivative of Chrome browser, it might, just by default do this as well. But they're saying from September 1st, new TLS certificates valid for more than 398 days will be snubbed. And I honestly think that, 398 days isn't really that long when it comes to the internet. But when it comes to security, for security's sake, yeah, I can definitely see how that would be something that these websites would, these browsers would get behind. So we'll talk about what this really means. But I think, just from what I know of the situation, if you purchased or were issued an SSL certificate then that simply means, I'm sorry, if you were issued an SSL TLS certificate 398 days plus ago, then all you have to do is go back and reissue a new certificate. And it's not hard to do. It's a little bit of work, and it makes sure that no one else has that, has that certificate, and can, in some way mimic or redirect people to a different version of your website. Obviously, very, very old, unchanged certifications can be a security flaw in their own. I mean, that's why we have constant updates and they constantly change things. Hey, just things that are around and stagnant for too long are their own security concern. So let's go ahead and talk about this from Sean Nichols, saying that from September 1st, Apple software from Safari to macOS to iOS will reject new HTTPS and other SSL TLS certificates that are valid for more than 398 days, plus or minus some caveats. Now, of course, back in February, they said that iGiant even formally announced the policy. A month later, it revealed the rules with a few exceptions. For example, this policy applies to certificates issued ultimately from root CAs known to Apple operating system, not user or administrator added CAs, saying that connections to TLS servers violate these new requirements will fail. This might cause network and app failures and prevent websites from loading. Which, again, the way to get around this is to have it reissued. So there you go. So with that being said, what this means for netizens is that websites and apps may stop working as expected on Apple Gear sometime after September 1st. And of course, now we know that Chrome and Firefox have joined up as well. They're saying that critics, particularly commercial certificate sellers, say it burdens software makers and site owners with extra cost and hassle and will drive folks to free services such as Let's Encrypt, which incidentally offers tools to, on the regular, automatically renew certificates at no cost. And remember that. Let's Encrypt is a free service offered through many of the websites, website hosting domains. So your GoDaddy's, your 1+1, your whatever other website hosting service that you use. Let's Encrypt is generally a free option that you can definitely do, and we definitely recommend that. And think about that. A free service is able to automatically renew certificates at no cost. That's something that I feel like these paid services should definitely be able to do. But of course, they service smaller websites. They don't service, think about some of the largest websites out there, either government contracts or, insert Facebook, Twitter, social media, Google, things like that. It's definitely going to put a burden on them. But they understand, and at least in Google's case, they understand why this is going to, why this is going to matter. So they say that, and this is part of the source code in Google Chrome and Chromium browsers that they just added, saying that certificates that violate this will be rejected and will be treated as misused. So Mozilla is looking to add this into their source code as well, and Chromium, therefore Edge, and whichever other browsers, they will of course also reject these. So if you see a problem with this, if you're a web administrator and suddenly it stops working, you get these calls, then this is the reason. All you have to do is renew your certification, which after 400 days, about once every year, give or take about a year and a month, you have to do this. So it's going to make the internet a safer place, and it's going to be a pain in the butt for a lot of reasons, but hey, that's the way it unfortunately has to be. So with that one being said, let's talk about something, again, another example of something that we saw coming, and hey, we kind of saw it coming. DirecTV. If you are one of the bold, one of the few, one of the proud DirecTV owners, check this one out. They were purchased by AT&T not too long ago. I want to say about 2 years ago or something like that. DirecTV and AT&T merged. Of course, AT&T decided to keep the DirecTV name, and they said that because of this merger, no one would lose their cable service. even though AT&T has been pushing for a while now to effectively collapse DirecTV and add all of its paid subscribers to its own services. So check this one out. AT&T absolutely bled subscribers in the first quarter of 2020, even by the standards of cord cutting that have accelerated. According to one measure, the company lost over 1 million video subscribers in the quarter, and the DirecTV losing nearly 900,000, and AT&T now losing about AT&T Now, which is a kind of like the video on demand AT&T streaming service, lost about another 138,000. So all in all, about 2 million people cut the subscribers in the first quarter of, of 2020. Of course, there could be other reasons for this. This could also do with a number of things, including a price increase that was announced in January. And on top of that, the pandemic, people are looking to cut back. And hey, maybe a way to save money is to finally decide to cut that expensive cable bill. Now they've announced another increase on new customers, raising the barrier for entry. Perfect. According to the website TV Answer Man, AT&T on Monday raised the first-year monthly price for new subscribers to DirecTV and AT&T TV. The company, however, has not raised prices for AT&T TV Now, nor has touched the prices of existing customers. So something done just kind of quickly, and again, only affecting new customers. Yeah, we'll certainly see. So the new subscribers must pay about $60 a month for the first year, compared to about $50. So it went up by about $10. And looks like everything across the board, I'm kind of reading here very quickly. Everything across the board was raised $10 a month. So another $120 a year for your first year. Saying that this is reflected on the sites, of course you can go to a bunch of different resources to kind of look at this. And hey, such as right here, if you're watching the video portion, you can kind of see the DirecTV system here. And yeah, everything is now $10 more expensive than it was just yesterday. In another change, AT&T last week stopped offering AT&T Watch TV. The ultra skinny bundle launched 2 years earlier for $15 a month, saying that standalone Watch TV is no longer available for new signups or to resubscribe. So I guess that means if anyone has it and their current subscription is about to run out, you cannot resubscribe to it. So they're trying to do away with it as fast as they can. They're not even keeping on existing users. They said that existing Watch TV customers who subscribe to the app have a qualifying unlimited plan that they can continue to use the service. The site then, after seconds, automatically redirects to my AT&T login page. So again, they're trying to offload existing Watch TV customers onto another service. Also this week, Forbes reported some details showing that AT&T employees appear to have unwittingly signed up customers for DirecTV Now subscriptions without their permission. Boy, that sounds like so similar to another practice by, I think it was Bank of America, that were using people's credentials to sign them up for lines of credit so that they could meet their sales quota. And it's unfortunate that is part of, kind of the corporate culture that, get those numbers up by any means necessary. And that these employees, and of course, back with Bank of America in particular, signing them up for high interest credit cards and loans, without their permission, those kinds of instances, the higher up said, we had no idea this was happening. We blame this all on the lower level employees. But of course, the lower level employees, the only way to make their numbers work and keep their job was to, of course, lie. It was all found out, and it looks like, hey, last week AT&T was doing something very similar. In 2017, after these, This happened in 2017, so very, very similar time period to Bank of America. They said in order to goose the subscription numbers in 2017, after the scheme was discovered, the company fired employees found to have engaged in those unethical practices. So it was exactly the same. The higher-ups, even though they put unreasonable expectations on employees are still the ones to, of course, bear the brunt of it. So, unfortunate. But there you go. So we'll include this article in the show notes, and you'll definitely be able to find it there. ComputerAmerica.com. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and continue on to story number 3. Story number 3, this is one from yesterday. We didn't get a chance, but I'm really happy that I have a chance to do this now. And this has to do with, well, facial recognition. And it's about as accurate as you can guess. And I'm going to let you guess here just for a minute. If you can kind of think, this technology, we've been hearing so much about it. It's so useful to police. It's so useful to law enforcement. It's all over the place. I mean, if you go into cities like London, San Francisco, if you go into really any, New York City, any major metropolitan area, there is a camera. What is the statistic? I think it's like a camera like every 50 feet or 100 feet. Essentially, every single corner of every block is pretty much canvassed in cameras. So, yeah, it's something new. So, with that being said, they must be super effective, right? No. Your time to guess is up. The correct answer is the false positive rate. I didn't even tell you what you were guessing. The false positive rate is 96%. So the error rate is 96%. That these facial recognition systems misidentify people at 96%. Which really goes to show how accurate can any of these systems be. Back in, which, don't get me wrong, this headline alone is an improvement. The last time we heard about the one from London, obviously not the same place, but in London, they were looking at a 98% false positive rate. So here we are. Detroit Police Chief Detroit Police Chief cops to 96% facial recognition error rate, saying that the Detroit police are under fire for mistaken arrest using the technology. And really, I don't even understand how you can, think about any other technology where accuracy matters so much. Think about optical character recognition. It's a very similar technology, although we've pretty much nailed OCR. OCR is used to essentially scan paper and, physical objects and be able to pick out characters and words and scan them into a text document. So if you scan a piece of paper, it uses OCR. And, back in the day, it wasn't that accurate, 80% accuracy, which meant, really, if you think about it, 80% is infinitely better than 96%, or at least 4% correct. Well, 20 times better. So instead, 80% meant that 1 out of every 5 words on the page were wrong. And if you're trying to read something and every 5th word is incorrect, and who knows, entire strings of word can, of course, be incorrect. That can, kind of make the whole technology almost useless. Even today, we have OCR that is 99.9% accurate, which is definitely usable. But at 96% of the time, comparing the rate of success of facial recognition versus OCR, at 96%, even then, 1 out of every 20 words is incorrect, and that can be very, very troublesome. Now here we have a situation where 1 out of 20 times the cameras are correct. I don't even know how that's usable. And it's in fact, I would even say that the amount of times that it gets it correct almost falls into the margin of error. So last week the ACLU filed a complaint with the Detroit Police Department on behalf of Robert Williams, a black man who was wrongfully arrested for stealing 5 watches worth about $4,000 from a retail store. Investigators first identified Williams by doing a facial recognition search software that they called DataWorks Plus. Under police questioning, he pointed out that the grainy surveillance footage obtained by police didn't actually look like him. The police lacked other evidence tying Williams to the crime, so they let him go. So now Vice, as they report, they've acknowledged the flaws with the facial recognition software at a Monday event. And this is actually pretty funny, saying that this is a quote from the police chief, Mr. James Craig, saying, "If we would use the software only to identify subjects, we would not solve the case 95 to 97% of the time. That's if we relied totally on software, which would be against our current policy. If we were just to use the technology by itself to identify someone, I would say 96% of the time it would misidentify." So they're using the camera as a way to kind of lead them to suspects, but obviously it's going to be wrong much more than it's going to be right. Researchers found that the accuracy of facial recognition software varies by the race of the subject, and with black subjects in particular, they have been identified less often than whites. And Kobler points out that the DPD's, or the Detroit Police Department, own statistics show that technology being used almost exclusively on black suspects. So 68 out of 70 facial recognition searches were done on black suspects, while 2 had a race code of U, probably for unknown. So, not going to get into the demographics of Detroit, but just goes to show that while China has put out their own story saying how amazing and wonderful their facial recognition system is, saying that they're able to pick out a couple of suspects out of a crowd of tens of thousands of people, I'm hearing many more stories that facial recognition, when it comes to these grainy surveillance video cameras, you're looking at more of a 96 to 98% misidentifications. That is the only thing you really have to worry about. Obviously Big Brother and, all the different horror stories that you can think of when it comes to technology, they're possible. The technology, like the foundation is set up, but the only solace that I can kind of give to you is that they're all really bad. Be it facial recognition, be it deep fakes or anything like that. They're all pretty bad. So we're safe for a little bit, but not because they're not trying. We're safe because they suck. So there you go. Okay, that was story number 3. And again, you can find these in the show notes. Story number 4. I have a couple different ones here that we could definitely do. We talked smack about AT&T and DirecTV and how they're trying to get people to unsubscribe seemingly. And so let's talk about another company that is seemingly trying to get people to unsubscribe. And of course, we're talking about the one, the only YouTubeTV. You haven't heard of it? That's amazing because, well, no one has either. YouTubeTV costs about $65 a month after another price increase. And this one's actually pretty substantial. Before, the pricing, the pricing was about $50 a month, and now you're looking at $65 a month. Really incredible that that they're willing to raise it up that much. So, with that being said, a little over 3 years after its launch, the cost base of YouTubeTV subscriber has almost doubled. I remember when it first came out, it was at I think it was like $34.99 or something like that. It had a large amount of promise, and YouTube struck deals that no other streaming service was able to kind of get at the time. Although now we're looking at these deals costing as much as cable, which makes no sense because that's the point of streaming versus traditional cable. Starting today, new members will pay $65 a month. The change will affect current users after their next billing cycle. YouTube last jacked up the price in April 2019, so a little over a year ago, to $50. So the monthly cost has increased by $15 this time around, saying that we don't take these decisions lightly and realize how hard this is for our members. That said, the new price reflects the rising cost of content, and we believe it reflects the complete value of YouTube TV, from our breadth of content to the features that are changing how we watch live TV. And I really do believe that a large part of this is the rising cost of content. If you have checked out the streaming landscape lately, then you are looking at a situation where every single content network, be it NBC, be it Fox, be it Showtime, HBO, so on and so forth, they're all putting their content out there for streaming, and they know that content means the most when it comes to their streaming service. So if they aren't going to put it on their own, then they are charging a premium to put it on other people's, because it's not just about losing the revenue from not having your shows on your service. It's about making making your competitor services more attractive than yours. And it's content is more valuable now than just the network that it's involved with. So they say that the rising cost of content seems related to the addition of more Viacom CBS channels to the YouTube TV lineup, including BET, CMT, Comedy Central, Nickelodeon, Paramount Network, TV Land, and VH1, as well as Paramount Network. So, not bad. I definitely went through a phase where I watched a lot of CMT. Grew out of that one, luckily. So here we are. They're saying that you can watch the likes of The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, RuPaul's Drag Race, SpongeBob SquarePants, and all of that on YouTube TV. With that being said, still, YouTube TV is creeping into the traditional cable pricing territory, which is, I think, the biggest problem. The benefit of streaming, it's never been the content, and that's really the problem, is that if YouTube TV thinks that they're going to persuade people to watch YouTube TV just because they have good content, that's the wrong strategy. Cable has way better content than streaming. 100% any day of the week, you get hundreds of channels. It's a better, more content-filled ecosystem. But when it came to value proposition, that's where streaming really hit. It's $10 for Netflix, $12 for Netflix, even though they're raising about like $1 every 6 months or so. But still, you have streaming services that are in the neighborhood of $10 to $15 to $20. And if YouTube TV, which is definitely, I would say, more of a competitor with other streaming services, and they continue to do this, where they're 2 to 3 times as expensive. No, I know plenty of people that are going to subscribe to Netflix, Hulu, and HBO, all of that at once over a singular YouTube TV subscription. And I've even heard some some belly aching about the fact that one of the big appeals of YouTube TV is that you get to watch live sporting events, so ESPN, so on and so forth. There are no sports currently, and probably for the rest of the year because of coronavirus. And the fact that they're looking to raise their prices in the middle of the pandemic, obviously this is not a charity, this is not altruism. If they feel this price is necessary, then they're going to do it. But their value has gone down, even with adding all these Viacom channels. Their content has gone down for a lot of people, and the price just increased a lot. It's it's kind of a hard value proposition to push. So I'm wondering how they're going to do that. They're saying that as for new features, YouTube TV is rolling out one that'll let you skip to different segments in some programs. It's a bit similar to the Key Plays option for sports. The feature is available on TV setups now, and it'll arrive on mobile in the next week. The service also refreshed its live guide on desktop to include details on what's currently airing and what will be available in the next 7 days. So, with that being said, YouTube TV is existing between two models, between cable and streaming subscription services. And the fact that they're pushing more to the more to the traditional model. Don't get me wrong. I think that should have been obvious when they were making deals with the content providers that they were making deals with, because those providers are still very much in line with traditional cable, kind of models. So, if that's your audience, if that's your partner program, then of course you're going to look more like the people that you partner with. But it's just not the way people are going. We're seeing, there was an article yesterday that we didn't do that was talking about the fact that people are getting really trigger happy, is what the article called it. They said that it's, they are getting really trigger happy with changing subscription services. Like, they'll keep something for 1 month, maybe 2, and then they'll immediately cancel and sign up for another one, depending on, and that just has to do with, watching all of the content that's available there, or at least everything that you want to see, and then you immediately jump ship to watch some of the stuff you want to see on the other platforms. So YouTube TV, it's always been a little bit of an oddball out there, but I think this one just kind of cemented it even more as an odd one out. So let's talk about Discord real quick. For those of you who don't know, Discord is a messaging-like service. It's very much, I would say it's very much its own beast. Discord first started out as a great way for video game players to start their own communities online. It was a great way to kind of have different chat rooms and have different rooms that people could go into and play video games together. You had a message board tied to each individual community that you could share images with and share messages and updates and things like that. Discord was really well fleshed out, and I personally definitely enjoy using the platform, though I gotta say, it has been traditionally for video games. That's it. And I think that Discord was purchased by, I want to say Twitch, and Twitch and Discord have a partnership, and therefore Discord is owned to some extent by Amazon. If you're wondering, who is going to benefit from all this, this is the closest Amazon has to a social media network. And I honestly do think it's still a really good one. But it looks like Discord may be going under a little rebranding effort. Story number 5, check this one out. Discord is rebranding to shift away from gaming, which I honestly don't have a problem with, as long as they keep the key functionality that made it so good for video gaming, because I think a lot of that functionality transitions very well to other forms of social media and I guess kind of productivity and meeting. So they said that the company says it wants to be more inclusive to all of its users, and I guess that means additional users as well. Saying that it does not have a new name, but Discord is effectively rebranding away from being an app dedicated to helping gamers communicate with one another during tense online matches. On Tuesday, so just today, the company announced it's changing its focus to make its software into a place where anyone can find a community, create their own chat server, and talk to their friends whether they're gaming or not. And I'm really interested to hear what the difference is between someone who plays video games and someone who doesn't. And before you say, well, obviously, the person who does not play video games doesn't play video games, I mean, what are their needs that are so different from someone who does? I'm interested to see what Discord thinks that is. They're saying that games are what brought many of you to our platform, and we'll always be grateful for that. Today, many of you use Discord for day-to-day communication. You're sharing thoughts about books, music, and art, creating servers to just be yourself and share moments with friends. Practically speaking, what the rebranding means for current and more specifically new users. And we even have, there we go. We'll go ahead and play this here in the background. It's their video. But yeah, saying that practically speaking, what the rebranding means for current and more specifically new Discord users is a streamlined onboarding experience and updated templates that make it easier to set up a server. Moving forward, there'll be fewer jokes within the app referencing games to make sure that everyone can be part of the fun. I guess that kind of inclusive, kind of getting away from gaming culture. I kind of get it, but hey, there's a lot to this. Moreover, Discord claims that user safety will be a major focus, and we will continue to take decisive action against white supremacists, racists, and others who seek to use Discord for evil. So essentially, more moderation is what they're promising. And so, with that being said, Discord also says it fixed hundreds of bugs, as well as increased voice and video capacity by 200%. So that means higher fidelity, higher bitrate, things like that. Great to hear. So Discord spends a lot of the blog posts saying how the change in branding is a reflection of how people use the platform, saying that we want to focus on experiences and people that matter to you, and that doesn't always include gaming. And to many people, that doesn't include gaming at all, because really, it's a very easy way to keep up with friends. And if you want to talk to those friends, it's an even easier way. It's actually a really great platform, but it's really only been kind of successful and popular among people who play video games. So there you go. With So with that being said, they mentioned Discord offhandedly mentions $100 million in additional funding. Before today, Discord's most recent funding saw a raise $150 million at a $2 billion valuation. This was back in 2018, and it was experimenting with its own digital storefront for games. According to a recent Bloomberg report, Discord saw those stats as an opportunity to raise additional capital, and it went into talks with investors seeking money at a valuation of between $3 and $4 billion. Discord has definitely been growing very, very well. A spokesperson for Discord confirmed to Engadget that the $100 million mentioned in the blog post is new funding, so it's safe to say that the company now has a higher valuation. And that also means that its investors, one of which is Tencent, although if you know anything about Tencent, they're kind of like the palm oil of video gaming. They're in everything. Now expect more of Discord. The company needs to deliver a greater return on investment, and the best way to do that is by breaking into the mainstream. I think that there is a place for Discord in the mainstream. It's very, very easy to start servers and chat rooms, and you can have multiple servers and multiple chat rooms that cater to different parts of your, of your life. One for family, one for friends, one for coworkers, one for any kind of social group you're in, one for interest, one for politics, one for name any kind of interest out there that you have, and there is probably a Discord server for you, and then more Discord servers that are even more niche than the one before it. It's very, very easy to kind of organize and get relevant information out there. Now they're trying to bring it to everyone, and I do think that there is a place for this even in the workplace. So Discord is trying to go mainstream. We'll see if they can do it. Okay, this is a quick little story. Story number 6. Nest thermostat. They were the original sexy thermostat. They are making a feature that used to only be a premium feature, now standard. And it's pretty timely. Definitely cool. Where a lot of people are looking to save money, and let's face it, the environment can always use a little benefit. So, if all Nest customers participate, they'll save millions of dollars by using the seasonal savings program that is now free for all thermostat users. Saying that to help customers save energy, Nest is offering its seasonal saving feature for free to its connected thermostat users in the US and most of Canada. The feature makes small tweaks to Nest thermostat settings to help reduce energy consumption. By adjusting temperature of a fraction of a degree each day, the average customer sees a 3 to 5% energy savings. That's what Google says. If all users participate, they could save millions of dollars collectively. So what I think that means is that if any other thermostat, you set it to 68, which is the correct temperature to set a thermostat to. But let's say you set it to 68 and it's so hot out that, it's struggling to keep it at 68, and it decides, you know what? During these hours of these days, we're going to set it to 69 or 70 degrees, although they said a fraction of a degree. So probably even just like 69 degrees as opposed to 68 degrees. You could save 3 to 5% on your energy bill altogether. Very impressive. You'll see a notification if you have a Nest thermostat that you can opt in. Until now, seasonal savings were only available to someone who was offered the seasonal savings program through their utility provider. Nest thermostats also sign up for Rush Hour Rewards, which allows Nest to make small temperature changes based on peak energy usage, and energy providers pay users for signing up. That's another big part of the energy grid. We've talked about that before. It's not just about generating enough electricity, but it's about using the grid effectively. If everyone went to their kitchen and turned on their stove or their oven or whatever electric appliance that you may have, if everyone listening to the show did that, there would be a noticeable bump and maybe even some bad things to happen. So don't do that. I'm just saying that managing the grid is really hard, but with these internet connected, utility provider connected smart thermostats, it's getting easier, and this will be reflected in everyone's energy bill. It's cheaper. It's cheaper to power more, and that's definitely a good thing. So there you go. Like I said, just a quick story, not too much to it. So let's go ahead and continue on here. Yeah, number of different stories that we can talk about. Looks like Nintendo was apologizing for their drifting issue that they were having in their sticks. If you don't know about that, that was a Nintendo Switch. Many of the Nintendo Switch and the Joy-Cons out there, they were having slight drift that was affecting user inputs, when playing games, and especially things like fighting games. It was very, very small, but at the same time, it had a huge impact for people who were playing the consoles. So Nintendo has finally acknowledged and apologized for it, and they're working on replacements. So there's that one, and then let's go ahead and talk about so many different ones. Let's talk about Huawei real quick. That's been a topic. If you haven't been following that, we even wrote an article about that, saying that it was more political than it was. It was more political than it was any kind of national security effort, and it's a story that we're trying to follow as best we can. It's very hard to tell what is happening with Huawei and ZTE, because both these are, of course, large Chinese tech producers that have close ties to the Chinese government. And at the same time, there is a massive push by our government here in America to kind of take them to task. Of course, you have like the European Union looking at Huawei and saying that, hey, we're not going to allow them to build our 5G networks. 5G antenna built by Huawei, before this they were like 90% of the market, and now countries are trying to scramble to see if there's anyone else that can pick up the slack if they don't want to actually use Huawei and ZTE as the provider. But it's not easy going at all. And now we have this article. The FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, wants to make it patently obvious that Huawei and ZTE are personas non grata in America telecom networks. The regulator has formally labeled Huawei and ZTE as national security threats, finally barring carriers from using the Universal Service Fund money to buy or maintain any products from these two Chinese companies. The move is partly symbolic when the US government's blacklisting makes the hardware difficult to buy regardless, but it does further close the door that was very nearly shut. And to put this all into perspective, Huawei makes a lot of technology that we use all the time and that American companies buy all the time. They were like days away from announcing a partnership with Sprint, T-Mobile, and I think one other. It was not AT&T, but it was like Sprint and T-Mobile. Both Verizon. That was the one. Verizon. They were days away from announcing a full partnership that would bring Huawei phones to American consumers. But then, essentially, the FCC and the current administration gave them a call when they heard about that and said, "Yeah, don't do that. That's a really bad idea. That multi-billion-dollar deal that you worked on, turn that up now. We're not letting Huawei into the American market," which is why you don't see these phones, even though they have a market share of 40, 50, 60% in almost every other country around the world. That's why in America they have like a 1% market share, at least when it comes to consumer smartphones. Something is, by something I mean it's pretty obvious that we are actively prohibiting Huawei from participating in the US market. And of course, that has now extended to 5G networks as we are starting to build the 5G infrastructure, and Huawei was the number one producer of these antennas to be sold to these markets that are trying to build themselves. So let's go ahead and continue on with the article, saying that Ajit Pai, who is of course the chairman, said that the order stemmed from an overwhelming weight of evidence pointing to reportedly close ties to the Chinese government and their requirement to honor Chinese laws, requiring that they cooperate with spy services. There hasn't been much in the way of technical evidence to support the claims, however. U.S. officials have largely remained tight-lipped on what, if anything, Huawei and ZTE have done. And that was the point of the Computer America article that we wrote a number of months ago about this whole thing, is that I fully understand that no company in China gets to the position that it's in with billions of dollars in funding, billions of dollars in revenue, and able to service so much of the world. I understand no Chinese company is going to be allowed to kind of grow itself like that without being under some kind of control or partnership with the Chinese government. I also understand that these things are possible through technology, that everything is kind of tracked and monitored, and of course, and here's the thing, America is most likely concerned with the ability for the Chinese to tap into communication networks and be able to intercept some important or all data flowing through those networks that are being powered by Chinese technology. But here's the thing. What have they done wrong? Has there been any proof where they say, hey, all this is going to remain on American servers, and then it's been rerouted to Chinese servers? Has it been copied to Chinese servers? Have they found backdoors? Have they examined the source code to see if there are any backdoors that would allow, let's say, the Chinese government or even Huawei themselves to break into these communication hubs? So far, there has been no actual reports that, there have, reports emerged in February that Huawei could allegedly access carrier backdoors, but the company rejected that claim by noting any access was tightly regulated. And think about that, the carrier backdoors that they're talking about are carrier backdoors in Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, AT&T. Those backdoors already exist by the FBI, by the American government, to get into cell phone communications. The government's problem was that, hey, potentially China could get into those backdoors. All of this, think about all of the angst and anxiety that the U.S. government is putting on this, and realize they're doing it themselves. They're doing it themselves. So, as with the FCC's original order in November, the security threat label isn't great news for smaller telecoms that bought Huawei or ZTE gear to save money and now face the prospect of replacing the hardware from other countries. Although the only country I've heard that can kind of produce on this level and compete with Huawei, if it's not China themselves, then it's going to be I would say it's like Ericsson out of Switzerland, and even they said that they saw demand go up like 100%. They're having a hard time producing as many as, of course, the entire European Union and the United States need. It's pretty crazy. So I think that's about it. I really do think, and you can go back and read the article, but even if you don't, I really do think that a lot of this is political. A lot of it is grandstanding, and the technicals about this, they should be pretty apparent and pretty obvious. A piece of technology like this is not just a little black box. It's not just something that can never be looked into. The source code. The source code can be looked at. The hardware can be examined. If there were backdoors leading to the Chinese government, they can be found. But instead, we're getting claims by, don't get me wrong, very, very reputable organizations such as the CIA, FBI, the FCC now, saying that these things are very, very bad and they're very, very dangerous for American telecommunications. From a technology standpoint, I think all of us are just kind of sitting here with our hands, kind of out there saying, okay, we can take your word for that, but we want to know why they're bad, not just that they are bad. And that's the part where the government is really falling short on, providing specific examples on why it's bad. And until they kind of say that, hey, we found code that sends everything to China. Until they send something like that out, we can only assume this is a political move to put pressure on one of the largest technology companies out of China. It's economic and political at the same time. So there you go. We'll go ahead and move on. That's a story I like to try to keep touch on as much as I can. We have time for maybe one, maybe two more stories. Let's talk about this article, just real quick. It's a recap of the one from yesterday. If you didn't actually hear it, the iPhone 12. The next iteration of iPhone from Apple, they're saying that there could be reports that it would not include a charger. It would not include a charger within the box. So the phone, the only thing when you purchase the phone in the box from Apple, it would no longer have earpods, it would no longer have a charger, it would strictly be the phone itself. And if at some point you would like to recharge your phone, you would have to go out of your way and buy a charger with it. It's almost like saying, you know what, we're going to cut costs by, we're going to cut costs by not including everything that you need. Like I said back then, there was a part of me that was like, not many people jump into the iPhone ecosystem without having some of the old chargers lying around, so it's not going to be the biggest problem. But it does seem very, very strange that Apple would not provide some way to make sure that their phone can be charged when you buy the box. Maybe that feeling will go away when this happens, but we'll certainly see. This author's point, just real quick, they say that there's one hope we really have, not only at Anchor, but others in the industry, that's really to turn chargers from being majority being in box to majority being bring your own charger. Saying that every smartphone has a charger with it. 1.5 billion smartphones were shipped last year. That's only for phones. And then, of course, you have laptops, tablets, power drills, and more. And you estimate about 4 billion chargers were shipped last year and about 300,000 tons of e-waste just from in-the-box chargers. I would dispute that a little bit. I don't know many people who take even their old charger that still works perfectly fine and throws them in the trash when they get a new charger. Many either keep the old one as a replacement or keep the new one as a replacement. So the problem of e-waste is definitely a problem. And we've had, many guests on the show here talking about how they're trying to tackle it. And really what we found is the best way to combat it is going at it from from the producer standpoint. It should not be on consumers. It's actually very hard for consumers to properly dispose of e-waste, and that's a problem that needs to change, and it needs to start at the production level in terms of recycling and making sure these things are reusable and not just kind of cheap and one-time use to be thrown away. So there's a lot that Apple can do that other cell phone manufacturers, laptop manufacturers can do to reduce e-waste. I personally don't think that not including a charger in the box is going to be... He's trying to turn a penny-pinching strategy into an altruistic motive. And I would not... I like Apple. I use their phones. I've had an iPhone for a number of years. I would not call them altruistic. And of course, B-Girl in the chat saying, I have chargers plugged in all over the house. Yeah, and that's another thing. If you have an extra charger, do you really have an extra charger? Because I'm sure that if you have additional chargers through buying phones, I'm sure that one goes in the bedroom, one goes, maybe even in the bathroom, one maybe goes into the living room or your family room or kitchen. I think to a lot of people, and more to that point, to a lot of people, there's no such thing as an extra charger at all. So there you go. So again, these are all rumors. This is something that we reported on yesterday, that Apple will not be including the EarPods or the charger in with the new phone. But if they don't, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. I just think it's going to be another example of how Apple is so good at marketing that they can sell you a product without a charging cable and you will still say, yeah, that's fine. It's not that big of an issue, but it is an issue. So I think that's where we're going to go ahead and kind of leave that at. The last things we're going to do, we'll leave you with something fun, and then of course we'll be back here tomorrow with the one, the only Mr. Mike Cermak, which is always a lot of fun. You will enjoy listening to him. But our last story for today has to do with the Xbox. The Xbox Series S. And that is another rumor name, another predicted name. So the current generation of Xbox, you're looking at the Xbox Series X, which a horrible name. I can't believe someone at Microsoft said, oh yeah, I know, that'll work. It's horrible. But now we have potentially, instead of the Series X, you have the Series S. Microsoft has been working on this second, cheaper, next-gen Xbox console for months. And it was leaked last week, shed some further light into the company's plan. They said that Microsoft's Xbox Series X dev kit allows game developers to enable a special Lockhart mode that has a profile of the performance that Microsoft wants to hit with the second console. So looking at this here, the Lockhart console will also include 7.5 gigabytes of usable RAM and around 4 teraflops of GPU performance, whereas the Xbox Series X will include 13.5 gigs of RAM and about 12 teraflops of GPU performance. At 4 teraflops of GPU performance and 7.5 gigs of RAM, you're looking at like a current generation console, but of course in new packaging. And it's probably going to be much cheaper. And I think this is where Microsoft is kind of hoping that they can regain some Microsoft is hoping that they can kind of regain some market share here, which is a good strategy. I mean, if you're looking for an all digital, something that kind of plays games decently, 1080p, and it's going to be okay. The Xbox Series S console, if this thing can come out at about $200 to $250, and the next gen consoles, we already know the PlayStation is going to cost about $450 to $500. If it can be half the price and play all the next gen games, that's going to be something to really consider. So everyone, I want to thank you so much for tuning into the Computer America Show. All these articles and more at Computer America. We'll have them up here shortly. And everyone, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, have a great day. Thank you so much. We'll catch you next time. Mike Cermak, everyone. Bye, everyone.